Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As I rise to support this motion, the adoption of the report of the Joint Committee of the National Assembly Department Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining, and the Senate Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Appointment as members of the National Climate Change Council laid on the table. Mr. Speaker, as I rise to support this motion, allow me also to welcome the students who are here today, who have come to see this house and how we run business. And I would want to distance myself from the comments of the Senator of Kisii, Senator Anyonka, who, while welcoming the other students, said they are lucky that they have come today. Sometimes we act in not a normal way. Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of the Senator himself of Kisii, but I would want to speak on behalf of myself. I am normal, and this side of the majority, we are normal, and we run the business of this house with decorum and normally. Mr. Speaker, as I support this motion, it's good to note that this is the first time this council is being formed for the last 6 years since the Climate Change Act was enacted. Mr. Speaker, this shows that the President, William Samoei Ruto, is serious about matters climate change. Mr. Speaker has been in office. He has been in office for about 8 months now, and you can see he has brought to this house the appointees so that they can start the business of climate change and its effects. Mr. Speaker, the other day, I saw a grandmother of about 100 years planting a tree, and she was planting a blue gum tree. Mr. Speaker, it kept me thinking, this tree takes about 15 years to mature, and a granny of 100 years might not live to enjoy the shade of that tree, but she planted anyway. I would urge this council to have that story as their mantra. Think of the future, not of today. Think about the coming generation. Think about the future of this nation and Africa as a whole. Mr. Speaker, this council, once it is formed, it will attract funding from different countries or different donors, Mr. Speaker. Because I know there are so many countries that are fighting climate change. We do even have the Paris Accord on climate change that is really supporting nations or asking nations to fight climate change and its effects, Mr. Speaker. This council should come up with policies that will for sure mitigate the effects of climate change. Mr. Speaker, when you talk about climate change, the next things we mention or we should mention is trees. And if you remember very well, the President has always had this clarion call that we should plant 5 billion trees within these 5 years that he's in office, and of course another 5 billion when we vote him in again in 2027. But for now, Mr. Speaker, if I was to do quick maths or quick mathematics, 5 billion trees, and we have 50 million people in this country, that means it's 100 trees per person. Mr. Speaker, if you divide that by 5, because that 5 billion trees is 5 years, if you divide 100 trees by 5, Mr. Speaker, you will see that each person only need to plant 2 trees per month, Mr. Speaker. Everybody can be able to take care of 2 trees per month for the next 60 months so that we can achieve the 5 billion mark of trees in this country, as per the clarion call of our President, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've seen so many people conduct planting tree exercises, and they call hundreds and thousands of people who plant those trees. But I ask myself a question. After you plant all those trees there, who will be watering them? So, Mr. Speaker, we need to redesign how we do things. Don't plant 1,000 trees in a day, then you leave them there, tomorrow they dry. It is an exercise in futility. But if we can take that exercise of planting trees frequently, just minimal, 3, 4 per Kenyan, we will be able to achieve this, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, research is paramount when it comes to fighting climate change. And you know, when you talk about climate change, it's all about food security, and of course, we secure the future of the generation. Mr. Speaker, we cannot talk about climate change without talking about food security. And when I talk about research, it's good for them to research and know, why do we have drought in this nation in some areas? They should not only research in this country. Let them go back to even other countries. Even in China, Mr. Speaker. The worst drought was in China in 1964, Mr. Speaker. The worst ever witnessed. And that's why they eat almost everything, Mr. Speaker. Because at that particular time,